The dust swirled like angry ghosts across the main street of Calico Ridge, Texas territory, carrying with it the stench of sweat, whiskey, and broken dreams. It was high noon in the summer of 1878, and the sun beat down mercilessly on the weathered buildings that lined the street like crooked teeth in a drunkard's smile. Ethan Cole pulled his hat lower over his eyes as he guided his horse toward the center of town. At 32, he cut an imposing figure tall, broad-shouldered, with hands roughened by years of working cattle and horses. His dark eyes held the kind of quiet intensity that made most folks step aside when he walked by. He wasn't looking for trouble today, just supplies for his ranch. But trouble, as it often did in Calico Ridge, had found its own way to Main Street. A crowd had gathered in the town square, their voices rising in a mixture of jeers and laughter that made Ethan's jaw tighten. He'd heard that sound before the ugly music of men who'd forgotten they were supposed to be civilized. Through the gaps between shoulders and wide-brimmed hats, he caught a glimpse of what held their attention. A makeshift platform had been erected near the water trough, and on it stood 3 women. Their wrists were bound, their heads bowed, and their clothes, what remained of them, hung in tatters. The auctioneer, a greasy man named Josiah Pratt, strutted back and forth like a bantam rooster, his voice carrying over the crowd. "Now, gentlemen, what we have here is prime merchandise. These ladies have found themselves in unfortunate circumstances, owing debts they can't pay, but their loss is your gain." Ethan's hands tightened on the reins. He'd seen too much of this since the war ended, desperate people selling themselves or being sold, the law turning a blind eye as long as the right palms were greased. He started to turn his horse away, but something made him pause. The woman on the far left had raised her head. She couldn't have been more than 23 or 24, with auburn hair that caught fire in the sunlight despite the dust and grime. But it was her eyes that stopped Ethan, cold green as spring grass. They blazed with a fury that hadn't been broken despite whatever had brought her to this moment, while the other 2 women wept or stared at nothing. She glared at the crowd with the kind of defiance that could get a person killed in a place like Calico Ridge. "This one here," Pratt was saying, grabbing the woman's chin roughly, "is Sarah Mae Daniels. Came west from Georgia after the war. Thought she'd find herself a new life. Well, she found something. All right, found herself in debt to the wrong people. She's a spirited one. Boys, knows her letters, can cook, clean. And I'm told she's got other talents that would warm a man's bed on cold nights." The crowd laughed, and someone shouted, "How much for an hour with her now?" Sarah Mae spat in Pratt's face. The auctioneer backhanded her, sending her stumbling. The crowd roared its approval. But Ethan felt something shift inside him, a memory of another auction, another woman who'd shown defiance in the face of degradation. His sister Emma, sold away when their farm failed. Her last look at him one of desperate hope that he'd somehow save her. He'd been 16 and powerless then. He wasn't powerless now. "Hey, let's start the bidding at $20, Pratt called out, wiping his face with a dirty handkerchief. $20 for a woman who worked hard by day and harder by night. "25, shouted a voice from the crowd. Ethan recognized Jake Morrison, who ran the Silver Dollar Saloon and was known for the rough way he treated his girls. 30. This from Carl Hendricks, a rancher who'd buried 2 wives already and was said to have helped them along to their graves. Sarah Mae stood straighter, her chin lifted despite the red mark blooming on her cheek. She caught Ethan's eye across the crowd, and something passed between them, not a plea, exactly, but a recognition. Here was someone who understood that dignity could survive even when everything else was stripped away. $40, Morrison countered, already loosening his belt in anticipation. Ethan dismounted, his spurs ringing against the packed earth as he shouldered his way through the crowd. Men stepped aside, recognizing him, whispering his name. Cole, the one who'd built his ranch up from nothing, the one who'd faced down rustlers and Indians alike, the one who kept to himself and didn't suffer fools. $100, Ethan said, his voice cutting through the noise like a knife through butter. The crowd fell silent. Even Pratt's jaw dropped. $100 was more than most men saw in 6 months of honest work. "Now, Mr. Cole," Pratt stammered. "That's a mighty generous offer, but 150. Ethan's hand rested on the Colt at his hip. Not threatening exactly, but reminding everyone present that he had the means to back up his words. Cash money, right now. Morrison started to protest, but Hendricks grabbed his arm, shaking his head. Nobody wanted to cross Ethan Cole. Not over a woman, not over anything. The man had a reputation for being fair, but hard as iron when pushed. Pratt's greed won out over any other consideration. "Sold to Mr. Ethan Cole for $150. Ethan pulled out his wallet, counting out the bills with deliberate slowness. The crowd began to disperse, disappointed at being cheated of their entertainment. He climbed onto the platform, his boots heavy on the wooden planks. "Cut her loose," he told Pratt. "Now, Mr. Cole, you understand that this is a legal transaction she's yours to do with as you please. But if she runs—" "I said cut her loose." Pratt fumbled with his knife, sawing through the ropes. Sarah May rubbed her wrists, watching Ethan warily. Up close, he could see the bruises on her arms, the hollow look of someone who hadn't eaten properly in days. But that fire in her eyes hadn't dimmed. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice hoarse but steady. Ethan studied her for a moment. "Can you ride?" She nodded slowly. "Then let's get out of here." He turned to leave, then paused. "And the name's not Master or Sir. It's Ethan or Mr. Cole, if you're feeling formal." "And if I run," she challenged, even as she followed him down from the platform. "Then you run." He helped her onto his horse, noting how she flinched at his touch but didn't pull away. "But first, let's get you a decent meal and a safe place to sleep. We can figure out the rest later." As they rode out of town, Sarah May sitting stiffly in front of him, Ethan caught sight of Silas Boone lounging outside the bank. The wealthy rancher tipped his hat mockingly, his eyes following Sarah May with an expression that made Ethan's skin crawl. Boone had a reputation for collecting things land, cattle, people. He didn't like being outbid. "That man," Sarah May said quietly. "He's the one I owed money to. He said I could work it off at his ranch. But when I got there—" She trailed off, her shoulders tensing. "You don't owe him anything anymore," Ethan said firmly. "That debt's been paid. And now I owe you instead." The bitterness in her voice was sharp as alkali water. "No," Ethan said, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. "You don't owe me a thing. Miss Daniels, I've got a spare room at my ranch, and I need someone who can read and write to help with the books. It's honest work for honest pay, that's all." She turned slightly to look at him, searching his face for the lie she was certain must be there. "Men don't pay $150 for a bookkeeper." "Maybe not," Ethan agreed. "But I knew a woman once who had that same look in her eyes you do. She didn't get a chance to keep her dignity. Figured maybe you should." They rode in silence after that, the town falling away behind them as they headed toward Ethan's ranch. The Circle C sprawled across 1,000 acres of good grazing land, backed up against the foothills where a spring-fed creek ran year-round. It had taken him 10 years of back-breaking work to build it up, and he'd done most of it alone. The ranch house came into view as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. It wasn't fancy, just a solid wooden structure with a wide porch and glass windows that had cost him extra to freight in from Dallas. But it was clean and well-maintained, with flowers growing in boxes under the windows. His sister would have liked those flowers. "It's beautiful," Sarah May said softly, the first unprompted words she'd spoken since they'd left town. "It's home," Ethan replied, helping her down from the horse. She stumbled slightly, and he steadied her, noting how she trembled despite the day's heat. "When's the last time you ate?" "Day before yesterday. Maybe the day before that. It's been hard to keep track." He cursed under his breath. Come on, let's get you inside. The house was cool and dim after the brightness outside. Ethan led her to the kitchen, pulling out a chair at the sturdy oak table. Sit, I'll fix something. She sat gingerly, as if expecting the chair to be yanked away, while Ethan busied himself at the stove, heating up beef stew from the night before and slicing thick pieces of bread. Sarah May looked around the room. Everything was simple but clean, well organized. A woman's touch in some of the details, the checkered curtains, the flowers in a vase on the windowsill, but with a sense of long absence. "Your wife?" she asked, gesturing at the feminine touches. "My sister." Ethan set a bowl of stew in front of her, along with the bread and a glass of cool water. "She's been gone 8 years now." Sarah May picked up the spoon, her hand shaking slightly. The first bite of stew brought tears to her eyes, whether from hunger or something else. Ethan couldn't tell. He busied himself with unnecessary tasks, giving her privacy to eat without feeling watched. "Why did you really buy me?" she asked when the bowl was empty. Ethan refilled it without comment before answering. "I told you, I knew someone once." "That's not all of it." He sat down across from her, his hands folded on the table. "No, I suppose it's not. Truth is, I've got more money than I need and no family to spend it on. Seemed like that money could do some good today instead of sitting in a bank. Plus, I really do need help with the books. My foreman, Tom, is good with horses and cattle, but can barely write his own name. And you trust me not to steal from you, a woman who was just sold for debt." "I figure a woman who spits in Josiah Pratt's face when she's got nothing left to lose is probably honest enough when she's got something worth protecting." That earned him the ghost of a smile. "You might be the strangest man I've ever met. Mr. Cole." "Ethan," he corrected. "And you haven't met Tom yet. He makes me look downright ordinary." He stood, moving to a cupboard and pulling out a bundle wrapped in brown paper. "Here, these were Emma's. They should fit well enough until we can get you something proper." Sarah May took the bundle clothes, clean and carefully preserved. "I can't." "You can and you will. Emma would tan my hide if she knew I'd kept a lady sitting in torn clothes when hers were going to waste in a cupboard." He showed her to the spare room, small but clean, with a real bed and a washstand. "There's water in the pitcher, soap and towels in the drawer. Lock the door if it makes you feel safer, keys on the inside. I'll be in the kitchen when you're ready." He turned to go, but her voice stopped him. "Ethan?" He paused in the doorway. "Thank you. I don't know what game you're playing, but thank you." "No game. Miss Daniels, just a man trying to do one right thing in a world full of wrong ones. Get some rest. Tomorrow we'll figure out the details." As he closed the door behind him, Ethan heard the key turn in the lock. Good. She was smart to be cautious. He returned to the kitchen, pouring himself a whiskey and stepping out onto the porch to watch the sunset paint the sky in shades of blood and gold. He'd acted on impulse today, something he rarely did. But seeing her on that platform, defiant in the face of degradation, had awakened something in him he'd thought long dead. Not desire, though she was pretty enough to stir any man's blood, but a need to balance the scales somehow, to save one woman where he'd failed to save another. The sound of approaching horses made him tense. 3 riders were coming up the trail, and even in the dying light, he recognized Silas Boone's Palomino stallion. "Evening, Cole," Boone called out as they reined up just outside the porch. His 2 companions were hired guns, their hands resting casual-like on their weapons. "Boone." Ethan didn't move from his position, though his whiskey glass in his left hand kept his right free. Bit late for a social call. "Just wanted to congratulate you on your purchase today. That's a mighty fine piece you bought yourself. Miss Daniels is my employee, nothing more." Boone laughed, an ugly sound. "Come now, Cole, we're all men here. No need to pretty it up, though I am curious what you plan to do with her. She's a bit spirited for most tastes." What I plan to do is none of your concern. Ah, but it is. Boone's smile was cold as a rattler's. See, that little filly owed me considerable money. I had plans for how she'd work it off. Had, Ethan said softly. Past tense, her debt's paid now. To Pratt, maybe, but there's the matter of interest. Damages, time lost. Boone leaned forward in his saddle. I'm a reasonable man. Cole, let's say another $100 and we'll call it square. Let's say you get off my land before I forget my manners. The tension stretched taut as fence wire. One of Boone's men shifted, and Ethan set down his whiskey glass with deliberate care. You're making a mistake, Cole, Boone said finally. I've got influence in this territory. The law listens to me. The law that let you put a woman on an auction block. Ethan's voice was flat, dangerous. That law can go to hell, and you can lead the way. For a moment, violence hung in the air like smoke. Then Boone laughed again, pulling his horse around. This isn't over. Cole, that woman is more trouble than you know. When you get tired of her games, don't come crying to me. They rode off into the gathering darkness, but Ethan remained on the porch, watching until they were out of sight. He'd made an enemy today, maybe several, but as he heard tentative footsteps behind him and turned to see Sarah May standing in the doorway, wearing Emma's blue dress and looking almost human again. He found he didn't much care. Was that about me? She asked. Nothing I can't handle. She studied him, this strange man who'd paid a fortune for her freedom and asked nothing in return but honest work. I meant what I said earlier. I don't understand you. Maybe that's for the best, Ethan replied, picking up his whiskey glass again. Understanding people is overrated. Better to just take them as they come and hope for the best. And what if they disappoint you? He looked at her then, really looked at her. Beneath the defiance and the wariness, he saw fear not of him exactly, but of hope itself. He knew that fear, lived with it every day. Then they disappoint me, he said simply. Won't be the first time, won't be the last, but that's tomorrow's problem. Today, you're safe, you're fed, and you've got a roof over your head. Sometimes that's enough. Sarah May nodded slowly, wrapping her arms around herself as a cool evening breeze swept across the porch. Sometimes it's everything, she said softly. And for the first time since he'd seen her on that platform, her eyes held something other than anger or fear. It might have been gratitude. It might have been the beginning of trust. It was a start. The morning sun crept through the curtains of the small room, painting golden stripes across the wooden floor. Sarah May woke with a start, her hand instinctively reaching for the small knife she'd hidden beneath her pillow. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then the events of yesterday came flooding back. The auction, the man who'd paid a fortune for her, the locked door that had kept her safe through the night. She sat up slowly, listening. The house was quiet save for the distant sound of activity outside, horses nickering, the clank of metal on metal, men's voices carrying on the morning air. Real ranch sounds, not the ugly noises she'd grown accustomed to at Boone's place. A soft knock at her door made her freeze. Miss Daniels? The voice was deep but gentle. Ethan? I've left breakfast on the tray outside your door. There's coffee, too. Take your time. She heard his footsteps retreat down the hall, then the front door opening and closing. Sarah May waited another full minute before cracking her door open. True to his word, a tray sat on the floor, scrambled eggs, bacon, toast, and a steaming cup of coffee. Her stomach clenched with hunger, but she brought the tray inside and locked the door again before eating. The food was simple but good, better than anything she'd had in months. As she ate, she studied the room in daylight. Clean white walls, a handmade quilt on the bed, a small dresser with a mirror. On the wall hung a sampler with careful stitching. Home is where love abides. Emma's work, she guessed. Ethan's sister, who'd been gone 8 years. After washing up at the basin, Sarah May dressed in another of Emma's dresses, a practical brown calico that fit well enough. She braided her hair, studying her reflection. The bruise on her cheek had darkened overnight, but her eyes looked clearer. Amazing what a good meal and a safe night's sleep could do. She ventured out of the room cautiously. The house was empty, but through the kitchen window, she could see Ethan working with a horse in the corral, his movements patient and sure. She watched him for a moment, this puzzling man who'd upended her world with unexpected kindness. The kitchen was clean, but she could see the signs of a bachelor's housekeeping dishes that needed proper washing, floors that could use a good scrubbing. Without thinking, she filled the kettle and set it to heat, then began gathering the dishes. It felt good to have something useful to do, something normal after weeks of nightmare. "You don't have to do that." She jumped, nearly dropping the plate she was holding. Ethan stood in the doorway, hat in hand, a line of sweat marking where it had sat. "I need to earn my keep," she said, turning back to the dishes. "You will, but not as a scullery maid." He moved to the pump, washing his hands and face. "Tom's bringing the ledgers up from the bunkhouse. Thought we could go over what needs doing." "You really meant it, about the bookkeeping." "I generally mean what I say, Miss Daniels." She set down the dish towel, turning to face him fully. "Why do you keep calling me that most men would—" She stopped, unsure how to finish. "Would assume ownership." Ethan dried his hands, his expression unreadable. "Would remind you every minute that they bought and paid for you. I'm not most men." "No," she said softly. "You're not." The moment stretched between them, charged with something Sarah May couldn't name. Then the door banged open and a grizzled older man entered, arms full of ledgers. "These damn books ain't got no lighter since yesterday." Tom groused, then caught sight of Sarah May. His weathered face split into a grin. "Well, I'll be hornswoggled. You must be the lady boss rescued from town." "Tom, this is Miss Sarah May Daniels." Ethan said, "Miss Daniels, my foreman. Tom McKenty. Don't let his rough manner fool you. He's mostly harmless." "Mostly harmless," he says. Tom set the ledgers on the table with a thump. "Been keeping this outfit running for 6 years, and that's the thanks I get." He winked at Sarah May. "Welcome to the Circle C, miss. About time we had a lady's presence around here again." Sarah May found herself almost smiling. "Thank you, Mr. McKenty." "Tom, please. We don't stand much on ceremony out here." He glanced at Ethan. "I'll leave you to it. Those yearlings won't brand themselves." After Tom left, Ethan pulled out a chair at the table. "Shall we—" For the next 2 hours, they went over the ranch's books. Sarah May's quick mind grasped the system easily, though she could see places where better organization would help. Ethan explained the operation: cattle sales, horse breeding, expenses for feed and supplies. He was patient, thorough, and treated her questions with respect. "You've been losing money on the horse sales," she observed, running her finger down a column of figures. "Have we?" Ethan leaned closer to look, and she caught the scent of leather and honest sweat. "Here and here. Your buyer in Fort Worth is shorting you, probably figuring you won't notice in the overall profits from cattle." Ethan studied the numbers, then let out a low whistle. "I'll be damned. Pardon my language." "I've heard worse, much worse, in places she was trying hard to forget." "I imagine you have." His voice was gentle. "Thank you for catching that. This is exactly why I need someone who understands figures better than Tom and me." They worked until noon, when Ethan called a halt. "That's enough for today. You need to ease back into things." He stood, stretching. "I thought I'd ride into town later, pick up some supplies. Anything you need." Sarah May hesitated. She had nothing but the clothes on her back, Emma's clothes, but asking felt too much like begging. "You'll need clothes of your own," Ethan said, reading her hesitation. And whatever else ladies require, make a list. I'll take it to Mrs. Hartley at the general store. She'll know what's proper. I can't. You can and you will. His echo of yesterday's words made her look up. Call it an advance on your wages if that makes it easier to swallow. She nodded slowly. I'll make a list. The afternoon passed quietly. Ethan rode out to check on the herds, and Sarah May found herself alone in the house. She explored cautiously, still half expecting someone to jump out and tell her it was all a cruel joke. The main room held leather furniture worn comfortable with use, shelves of books that surprised her, and a stone fireplace. Ethan's room she passed by with only a glance, but she lingered at another door, slightly ajar. This room was frozen in time, a narrow bed with a faded pink coverlet, dolls arranged on a shelf, books lined up precisely, Emma's room untouched for 8 years. Sarah May backed away, feeling like an intruder, but not before noticing the daguerreotype on the dresser, a young woman who looked like a feminine version of Ethan, all dark hair and serious eyes. She was 19 when that was taken. Sarah May spun around. Ethan stood behind her, having returned without her hearing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pry. It's all right. He moved past her to pick up the picture. Emma was... She was everything good in this world. Smart, kind, brave. When our parents died, I tried to keep the farm going, but I was just a kid myself. The bank took everything. Emma and I were going to start over out here, but then... What happened? Sarah May asked softly. She got sick, real sick. I didn't have money for a doctor. For medicine. A man named Carver offered to help. Said he'd take care of her. Get her the treatment she needed. I was desperate. His knuckles whitened as he gripped the frame. He sold her instead. To a house in San Antonio. By the time I tracked her down, she was gone. Fever took her, they said, but I know better. The shame and the suffering, that's what killed her. Sarah May's hand moved without her permission, touching his arm lightly. It wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? He set the picture down carefully. I should have found another way. Should have robbed a bank if I had to. Anything but trust a man like Carver. You were young. You did what you thought was best. He looked at her then. Really looked at her. Is that what you tell yourself about how you ended up on that platform? The question hit like cold water. Sarah May pulled her hand back. That's different. Is it? She turned away, wrapping her arms around herself. I came west thinking I could start over. Be someone new, but men like Boone, they can smell desperation. He offered me work. Respectable work, he said. By the time I realized what he really wanted, I owed him for room and board, for the clothes he'd bought me, for everything. The debt kept growing no matter how hard I worked, and the work kept getting less respectable. But you fought back. For all the good it did me? She laughed bitterly. He was going to sell me anyway. Said I was too much trouble for his regular establishment, at least on that platform. I could show them they hadn't broken me. Not completely. No, Ethan agreed. Not completely. They stood in silence, two damaged souls recognizing something familiar in each other. Then Ethan cleared his throat. Mrs. Hartley will be closing soon. If you have that list. Sarah May had written it on a scrap of paper, the bare minimum she could think of. Ethan glanced at it and frowned. This is all... It's more than enough. He pocketed the list. I'll be back before dark. There's a shotgun above the mantel if you need it, though I don't expect trouble. After he left, Sarah May returned to the kitchen. She found supplies and began preparing dinner, nothing fancy. Just beef stew and biscuits, but made with care. It felt strange. Cooking in a kitchen where she felt safe, where no one would grab her or demand more than she could give. The sun was setting when she heard horses approaching. Multiple horses. Her heart began to race, and she moved to the window. But it was only Ethan returning with Tom and another ranch hand. all of them loaded down with packages. "What did you do?" she asked as they began carrying things inside. "Told Mrs. Hartley you needed a complete wardrobe," Ethan said, setting down an armload of parcels. She got a bit enthusiastic. "A bit," Tom snorted. "Boss bought out half her store, and that ain't all show her. Miguel," the younger ranch hand, a shy Mexican boy, held out a small pot with a flowering plant. "Senor Cole, he say the house need more flowers. For a lady." Sarah May felt her eyes burn with sudden tears. Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Ethan warned. Mrs. Hartley included several things I'm told are called foundation garments. I didn't ask for details, and I'd appreciate if we never speak of this again. That surprised a laugh out of her first real laugh in months. Tom grinned and elbowed Miguel. "See? Told you she'd clean up nice." "Tom?" Ethan's voice held a warning. "What I'm just saying, it's good to hear laughter in this house again. Been too damn quiet for too long." They stayed for dinner, the four of them around the kitchen table like a strange sort of family. Tom told stories that made Miguel blush and Sarah May hide her smiles. Ethan mostly listened, but she caught him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. After the hands left for the bunkhouse, Sarah May began clearing the dishes. This time, Ethan helped without her asking. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For everything today. The clothes, the flowers, for telling me about Emma." "She would have liked you," Ethan said. "You've got the same kind of steel in your spine." "I don't feel strong. Most days I feel like I'm barely holding together." "That's what strength is," he said simply. "Holding together when everything's trying to tear you apart." Their hands brushed as they both reached for a plate. Sarah May pulled back quickly, her heart suddenly racing for an entirely different reason than fear. It's been a long day," she stammered. "Of course. Good night, Miss Daniels." "Sarah May," she corrected impulsively. "Just Sarah May." A small smile tugged at his lips. "Good night, Sarah May." In her room, she unpacked the parcels with growing wonder. Dresses, undergarments, nightgowns, even a warm coat for winter. Everything of good quality. Nothing flashy or inappropriate. At the bottom of one box, wrapped in tissue paper, was a delicate blue shawl embroidered with tiny flowers. A note was pinned to it in Ethan's careful handwriting. "This was Emma's favorite. I think she'd want you to have it." Sarah May pressed the soft wool to her cheek, and finally let the tears fall. For the first time in longer than she could remember, they weren't tears of despair or fear or rage. They were tears of something far more dangerous, far more precious. Hope. She folded the shawl carefully and placed it in the dresser drawer, then prepared for bed. The knife stayed under her pillow. She wasn't ready to give up that security yet. But as she lay in the dark, listening to the peaceful sounds of the ranch at night, she allowed herself to imagine that maybe, just maybe, she'd found a place where she could stop running, where someone saw her as more than damaged goods or lost property, where she could be Sarah May Daniels, bookkeeper in person, instead of just another unfortunate woman with a past. It was a dangerous thought. Hope always was. But as sleep finally took her, she held on to it anyway, as carefully as she'd held Emma's shawl. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Boone wouldn't give up easily, and there would be those in town who'd never let her forget where she'd been. But tonight, she was safe. Tonight, she was valued. Tonight, in this strange house with its gentle ghosts and complicated owner, she could rest. And that, as Ethan had said, was sometimes enough. Sometimes it was everything. The weeks that followed took on a rhythm of their own. Sarah May rose with the sun, prepared breakfast, and spent her mornings bringing order to years of haphazard bookkeeping. Ethan worked the ranch, but he always returned for the noon meal, where they would discuss accounts and improvements. In the evenings, they often sat on the porch, watching the sun paint the sky while maintaining a careful distance that spoke of respect rather than indifference. She had even begun to smile more, though the expression still felt foreign on her lips. It was on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after her arrival, that the fragile peace shattered. Sarah May had ridden into town with Tom to purchase supplies, her first trip back since the auction. She'd steeled herself for stares and whispers, but the reality was worse. "Well, if it ain't the auction girl," sneered Mrs. Pemberton, the banker's wife, blocking Sarah May's path outside the general store. "Playing lady of the manor now. Are we—" "Excuse me," Sarah May said quietly, trying to step around her. "Don't you excuse me. We all know what you are. What you've done. Decent women shouldn't have to share the street with your kind." A small crowd began to gather, drawn by the prospect of drama. Sarah May kept her chin up, though her hands trembled as she clutched her basket. "Now, hold on there," Tom started, but Mrs. Pemberton's husband joined the fray. "Keep out of this, McKenty. It's bad enough Cole brought his trollop to live openly at the ranch. We won't have her corrupting our womenfolk in town." "I'm Mr. Cole's bookkeeper," Sarah May said, finding her voice. "Nothing more." "Bookkeeper, Mrs." Pemberton laughed shrilly. "Is that what they're calling it now? We all know what kind of books you're keeping. Missy, the kind that's written in bed sheets." The crowd tittered. Someone spat near Sarah May's feet. She felt the old familiar rage building, the defiance that had sustained her through worse than this. But before she could respond, a familiar voice cut through the mob. "Afternoon, folks." Ethan stood at the edge of the crowd, his hand resting casual-like on his gun belt. He looked relaxed, almost bored, but Sarah May had learned to read the tension in his shoulders, the cold fire in his eyes. "Cole," Pemberton blustered, "we were just explaining to your employee about proper behavior in town." "Were you now?" Ethan moved through the crowd, people stepping aside without thinking. He stopped beside Sarah May, not touching her but close enough that she could feel his solid presence. "And here I thought proper behavior meant minding your own business." "Now see here." "No, you see here." Ethan's voice dropped low, dangerous. "Miss Daniels works for me. She's under my protection. Anyone who has a problem with her has a problem with me, and I solve my problems with lead, not gossip." The threat hung in the air like gun smoke. Pemberton's face flushed red, but he grabbed his wife's arm. "Come along, Mabel. We've wasted enough time on trash." The crowd dispersed slowly, but the damage was done. Sarah May stood rigid, her face a mask of composure that didn't fool Ethan for a second. "Let's get those supplies," he said gently. Inside the store, Mrs. Hartley served them with nervous efficiency, clearly wanting them gone before more trouble started. Sarah May moved mechanically, selecting items from her list while Ethan watched with growing concern. The ride back to the ranch was silent. Tom tried once to lighten the mood with a joke, but Ethan's sharp look silenced him. When they reached the house, Sarah May climbed down from the wagon and walked inside without a word. Ethan found her in the kitchen an hour later, scrubbing the same pot for the third time. "Sarah May." "I'm fine." She scrubbed harder. "It's nothing I haven't heard before." "That doesn't make it right." "Right." She whirled on him, eyes blazing. "Nothing about any of this is right. They're correct. You know, everyone knows what I am, what I was, what I'll always be in their eyes." "You're wrong." "Am I?" She laughed bitterly. "I'm the auction girl, the trollop, the fallen woman who should be grateful a decent man even looks at her. That's all I'll ever be to them." "Not to me." The quiet words stopped her tirade. She stared at him, searching his face for the lie, the judgment, the disgust that must surely be there. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you look at me and see something different?" Ethan was quiet for a long moment. "Maybe because I know what it's like to be judged for one moment in your life, After Emma died, I went a little crazy. Tracked down Carver, the man who sold her. Put 3 bullets in him in front of half of San Antonio. Should have hanged for it, but the judge knew Emma's story, said it was justifiable, but folks still look at me and see a killer first, man second. That's different. You were seeking justice. Was I, or was I just angry and looking for someone to blame? He moved closer, his voice gentle. We all got our burdens. Sarah May, things we've done, things that were done to us, but that's not all we are. Then what am I? You're the woman who makes the best biscuits in Texas. Who caught that Fort Worth buyer cheating us? Who hums while she works when she thinks no one's listening? Who's teaching Miguel to read in the evenings? His lips quirked. Who's too stubborn to let small-minded fools drive her off? Sarah May felt tears threaten. I'm not strong enough for this, Ethan. Every time I go to town, it'll be the same. Worse, maybe. Then don't go alone. Tom or I will accompany you until folks get used to the idea. And if they never do, then we'll build our own world out here. One where you're judged by what you do, not what was done to you. Before she could respond, the sound of approaching horses made them both tense. Through the window, Sarah May saw her nightmare approaching Silas Boone, accompanied by 6 armed men. Get inside, Ethan ordered. Lock the door. Ethan, now. She ran for the house as Ethan stepped onto the porch. Tom appeared from the barn, rifle in hand, and Miguel ducked behind the water trough. The odds weren't good. Cole, Boone called out, reining up just outside comfortable shooting distance. We need to talk. So talk. I've been patient, more than patient, but I'm done playing games. Boone pulled out a folded paper. This here's a legal contract. That woman signed it, agreeing to work off her debt in my establishment. The auction was illegal. Pratt had no right to sell her. That paper's worthless, and you know it. Judge Henderson doesn't think so. Neither does Sheriff Watson. They're both reasonable men who understand the importance of honoring contracts. Ethan's jaw tightened. Henderson and Watson were both in Boone's pocket. Everyone knew it. What do you want? Boone. What's mine? Hand over the woman, and we'll ride away peaceful-like. Keep her, and I'll have the sheriff out here with a warrant by noon tomorrow. You'll lose her anyway, and probably your ranch in legal fees fighting it. And if I say no? Boone smiled coldly. Then maybe we settle this right now. 7 of us, 3 of you. Well, 2.5, counting the Mex boy. The tension stretched taut. Ethan's hand hovered near his gun. Calculating odds, distances, cover. He was fast. Maybe fast enough to take Boone and 1 other, but that left 5 guns against Tom and Miguel. Don't do it. Sarah May's voice carried from the doorway. She stepped onto the porch, the shotgun from above the mantel steady in her hands. Get back inside. Ethan growled. No. She kept the gun trained on Boone. This is my fight too. Well. Boone chuckled. The kitten has claws. Put that down before you hurt yourself, girl. I've hurt plenty of men who thought I was helpless, Sarah May said evenly. Want to test whether I remember how... One of Boone's men shifted nervously. A woman with a shotgun was unpredictable, dangerous in ways a man might not be. You fire that gun, we'll cut you down, Boone warned. Maybe, but you'll be dead first. Both barrels are for you. Boone, for every filthy thing you made me do. For every time you... She stopped, swallowing hard. For everything. Sarah May, Ethan said quietly, not taking his eyes off the riders. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Her voice was steady now. I'm tired of running, tired of being afraid. If they want to fight, they'll get one. Boone's horse danced nervously. Sensing its rider's tension, the standoff stretched on. 7 guns against 4, with death hanging in the balance. Then, unexpected salvation came thundering up the road. A dozen riders, moving fast, dust billowing behind them. As they drew closer, Ethan recognized the lead rider, Jack Morrison, the federal marshal based out of Fort Worth. "Afternoon. Gentlemen," Morrison called out, his star glinting in the sun. "Seems like quite a gathering. Gun party, and I wasn't invited." "Marshal," Boone said smoothly. "Just conducting some legal business with Mr. Cole." "Legal business that requires 7 armed men." Morrison dismounted, his hand resting on his pistol. "Show me this legal business." Boone handed over the contract. Morrison studied it, then looked at Sarah May. "Ma'am, did you sign this?" "Under duress," she replied. "He said it was for housework. It wasn't." "I see." Morrison pocketed the paper. "Mr. Boone, this contract's got more holes than Swiss cheese. Any first-year lawyer could tear it apart. More importantly, I've been hearing disturbing rumors about your business practices. Might be time for a federal investigation. Now, Marshal, I suggest you and your men head on home, and if I hear about you bothering Miss Daniels or Mr. Cole again, we'll have ourselves a more official conversation, one involving handcuffs." Boone's face flushed dark red. "This isn't over." "Yes," Morrison said mildly. "It is." For a long moment, violence trembled on the edge of erupting. Then Boone yanked his horse around. "Let's ride." They thundered off, leaving dust and anger in their wake. Sarah May lowered the shotgun with shaking hands. Ethan moved quickly to take it from her before she dropped it. "You all right?" She nodded, though her face was pale. How did the marshal know to come? Morrison grinned. "Got a wire from Tom McKenty here. Said there might be trouble brewing. I was already heading this way to look into Boone's operations. Man's been getting too big for his britches." "Figured it couldn't hurt to have backup," Tom said, looking pleased with himself. "I owe you a debt, Marshal," Ethan said. "No debt, just doing my job. Though I'd appreciate a cup of that coffee I smell brewing. Long ride from Fort Worth." An hour later, after the marshal and his men had refreshed themselves and ridden on, Sarah May found herself alone with Ethan on the porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. "You were ready to die for me," Ethan said quietly. "You've risked the same for me every day since the auction. That's different." "Is it?" She looked at him. "I'm tired of being protected, Ethan. I want to stand on my own feet, fight my own battles." "Nothing wrong with accepting help when you need it." "No," she agreed. "But there's a difference between accepting help and hiding behind someone else's strength." She touched his arm lightly. "What you've given me these past weeks, it's not just safety. It's the chance to remember who I am, who I could be." "And who's that?" She smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "I'm still figuring that out, but for the first time in a long time, I think I might like who I find." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear. The day had shown them both something important. The world wouldn't change overnight. There would always be those who saw her as the auction girl, who judged her for her past. But there were also those who saw her differently, Ethan, Tom, Miguel, even Marshal Morrison. And most importantly, she was beginning to see herself differently. "Sarah May." "Next time you point a gun at someone, remind me to be standing behind you instead of beside you." She laughed, surprising them both. "Deal, though I hope there won't be a next time." "In this territory, don't count on it." But there was no real worry in his voice. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Not as protector and protected, but as partners, equals. The auction girl was gone. In her place sat Sarah May Daniels' bookkeeper, ranch woman, and force to be reckoned with. And that, she thought, as the first coyote began its evening song, was a beginning worth fighting for. The attack came at dawn, swift and brutal. Sarah May woke to the thunder of hooves and the crash of breaking glass. She rolled from bed, grabbing the derringer Ethan had given her, just as rough hands seized the door to her room. "Ethan!" she screamed, but gunfire was already erupting outside. The door splintered open. Two of Boone's men rushed in, and Sarah May fired, catching one in the shoulder. He cursed and stumbled back, but the other was on her, knocking the small gun from her hand. "Got her!" he shouted, dragging her toward the door despite her fierce struggles. Through the window, she could see Ethan and Tom pinned down behind the water trough, exchanging fire with at least a dozen attackers. Miguel was nowhere to be seen. She prayed he'd manage to hide. "Let me go." She drove her elbow into her captor's ribs, broke free for an instant, but he caught her by the hair and yanked her back. "Feisty little thing. Ain't you boss said you would be?" They dragged her outside, where Boone waited on his palomino, calm as if supervising a roundup rather than an assault. "Good morning. Miss Daniels, ready to honor your obligations?" "Go to hell." He smiled coldly. "Eventually, but you first." "Boone!" Ethan's voice rang out, deadly with rage. "Let her go!" "Come and take her, Cole." "Oh, wait." Boone laughed as more gunfire forced Ethan back into cover. "Seems you're a bit busy." Sarah May watched in horror as one of Boone's men circled around, trying to flank Tom's position. "Tom, behind you!" The old foreman spun and fired, dropping his attacker, but the distraction cost him. Another bullet caught him in the side, and he went down hard. Ethan broke cover, racing to his friend, firing as he ran. Two of Boone's men fell, but there were too many. Such loyalty, Boone mused. Touching, really, but futile. "Load her up, boys." They were tying her hands when Miguel appeared like a ghost from the barn, Emma's old rifle in his hands. The boy couldn't have been more than 17, but his face was set with determination. "Let her go," his voice cracked, but the rifle didn't waver. One of Boone's men laughed. "Look here, boys, the Mex kid wants to play hero." "Miguel, run!" Sarah May shouted, but he stood his ground. "I said let her go." "Kid's got spine," Boone admitted. "Shame." He nodded to his men. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. 3 guns swung toward Miguel. The boy's eyes widened, but he didn't run. Sarah May screamed, and Ethan moved faster than she'd ever seen a man move. He came out of nowhere, shoving Miguel aside just as the guns roared. The boy hit the dirt, safe, but Ethan spun and fell, blood spreading across his shirt. "No!" The word tore from Sarah May's throat, raw and primal. For a moment, everything stopped. Then Tom, bleeding but not dead, rose up and put a bullet straight through the head of the man who'd shot Ethan. Miguel grabbed Ethan's fallen pistol and started firing with surprising accuracy. And, in the chaos, Sarah May wrenched free from her captor's loosened grip. She didn't think, just moved. Ethan's rifle lay where he'd dropped it. She scooped it up, worked the lever, and swung it toward Boone. "Call them off," she said, her voice deadly quiet. Boone looked down the barrel of the rifle, into her eyes, and perhaps finally understood that he'd pushed too far. This wasn't the broken woman from the auction platform. This was someone who'd found something worth killing for. "You won't shoot," he said, but uncertainty colored his voice. "I've got nothing left to lose," Sarah May replied. "You made sure of that, but I can make sure you lose everything, too." A tense standoff. Boone's men waited for orders, but their leader sat frozen, calculating. "In the dirt," Ethan groaned, trying to rise. "Alive, thank God, alive." "Boss," one of his men said nervously. "Morrison's men could be here any minute. We need to go." Boone's jaw worked. Then, finally, he raised his hand. "Fall back." "But, boss," I said, "fall back." They retreated, dragging their dead and wounded. But Boone paused at the edge of the yard. "This isn't over, girl. Cole can't protect you forever." "He doesn't have to," Sarah May said, keeping the rifle trained on him. "I can protect myself." After they were gone, she dropped the rifle and ran to Ethan. The bullet had caught him high in the chest, missing the lung but bleeding badly. Tom was sitting up, pressing a hand to his own wound, directing Miguel to fetch medical supplies. "Don't you die on me," Sarah May said fiercely, pressing her hands against Ethan's wound. "You hear me? Don't you dare die." Ethan's eyes fluttered open, focusing on her face. "Bossy," he mumbled. "I like it. Shut up and save your strength." "Sarah May." His hand found hers, sticky with blood. "Need to tell you." "Tell me later, after we get you patched up." "No, now." He struggled to sit up despite her protests. "In case..." "There's no in case. You're going to be fine." "Listen to me." The urgency in his voice stopped her. "That first day, at the auction, you asked why I paid so much. Ethan, please." "Wasn't about Emma, not entirely." He coughed, wincing. "I looked at you up there, so fierce, so unbroken, and I thought maybe I'd found someone who could understand, someone who wouldn't see me as just the man who killed in cold blood." "I don't..." "Let me finish." His grip on her hand tightened. "These weeks, watching you fight your way back, seeing you smile, hearing you laugh. Sarah May, I..." "Got the medical kit," Miguel rushed back, arms full of supplies. "Senor Tom says to put pressure on the wound and..." The moment shattered. Sarah May took the supplies, all business now, though her hands trembled as she worked. They needed a real doctor, but town was an hour's ride, and moving Ethan could kill him. "I'll go," Miguel volunteered. "I can ride fast." "Take my horse," Tom grunted. "And watch for Boone's men." As the boy galloped off, Sarah May continued working on Ethan's wound. He'd passed out, which was probably a mercy. She'd seen her share of violence at Boone's place, had basic knowledge of treating injuries. But this... "He'll make it," Tom said, reading her fear. "He's tougher than he looks, and he's got something to live for now." Sarah May glanced at the older man. "Tom." "I got eyes, girl. Been watching you two dance around each other for weeks. Like watching a couple of Mustangs deciding whether to fight or mate." Despite everything, she felt heat rise in her cheeks. We're not..." Sure. Tom chuckled, then groaned as the movement pulled his wound. "Just saying, I ain't seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Not since Emma..." "No." Tom's voice was serious now. "Emma was his sister, his responsibility. You're something else entirely. You're his equal, his match. The woman who stood beside him against Boone instead of hiding inside." Sarah May focused on cleaning Ethan's wound, uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "I couldn't hide. Not anymore. I'm tired of being afraid." "Good. Fear's useful sometimes, but it makes a poor master." Tom shifted, trying to find a more comfortable position. "You know what you said to Ethan just now about protecting yourself?" "Yes." That's what he's been waiting to hear. Not because he don't want to protect you, but because he needs a partner, not a dependent, someone who'll stand with him, not behind him. Sarah May looked down at Ethan's pale face, remembering his words. Someone who could understand, someone who wouldn't see him as just a killer. Is that what they were to each other? Two damaged souls who'd found their match. "I need to tell you something," she said suddenly, surprising herself. "About my past, about what Boone..." "Don't need to know," Tom interrupted gently. "Neither does Ethan. We all got things we'd rather forget. What matters is who you are now, who you're becoming. But, girl, you just faced down Silas Boone with a rifle, saved Ethan's life, probably all our lives. You think any of us care what you had to do to survive before you got here?" Tears stung her eyes. I'm not pure, not innocent. The things I had to do— Pure, Tom snorted. Innocent. This is the frontier, not a Sunday school. We need women with steel in their spines, not porcelain dolls. And from where I'm sitting, you've got more steel than most men I know. The doctor arrived as the sun reached its zenith, Miguel having made record time. Doctor. Harriman was a competent man who'd seen his share of gunshot wounds. He worked on Ethan first, extracting the bullet and stitching the wound. He's lucky. Harriman announced, inch to the left and it would have hit the lung. He'll need rest. Lots of it. But he should recover fully. Relief made Sarah May's knees weak. She turned her attention to Tom while the doctor cleaned up, mothering the old foreman despite his protests. Quit fussing, woman. I've been shot before. Not on my watch, she retorted, making him drink the laudanum the doctor had left. It was late afternoon when Ethan finally stirred. Sarah May was beside him instantly, offering water, checking his bandages. How do you feel? Like I've been shot, he said weakly, but his eyes were clear. Tom Miguel. Both fine. Tom's wound was shallow, and Miguel doesn't have a scratch, thanks to you. Good. He studied her face. You've been crying. No, I haven't, she lied, wiping at her cheeks. Sarah May. His hand found hers again. What I was trying to say earlier. You don't have to. Yes, I do. His grip was weak but insistent. I'm no good with words. Never have been. But watching you today, seeing you stand up to Boone, fighting for us. For me. She waited, heart pounding. I'm no virgin, he said, echoing words she'd thought but never spoken aloud. I've done things I'm not proud of. Killed a man in cold blood. Been with women I didn't love because I was lonely. Made mistakes that cost lives. Ethan, but you make me want to be better. To be the man you look at sometimes when you think I'm not watching. The man worth standing beside, not the killer everyone else sees. Sarah May felt tears sliding down her cheeks again. You are that man. You've been that man since the day you saved me from that platform. He smiled weakly. Still mine tonight. The words hung between them, weighted with meaning. Not a claim of ownership, but a question. A choice. Still yours, she whispered. Tonight and for however long you'll have me. Forever, then, he murmured, eyes drifting closed. Choose you forever, Sarah May Daniels. She sat with him as he slept, holding his hand, watching his chest rise and fall. Outside, Tom and Miguel were fortifying the ranch, preparing for another attack. But for now, in this moment, there was peace. The morning had shown her something crucial. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She had something to fight for, someone to stand beside. The auction platform seemed a lifetime ago, that broken girl a stranger. In her place sat a woman who'd faced down the devil himself and won. A woman who'd chosen love over fear. A woman who was finally, truly free. The news spread through Calico Ridge like wildfire. Ethan Cole, the respectable rancher, had taken a bullet defending the auction girl. Worse still, word was he planned to marry her. By the time Sarah May rode into town for medical supplies a week later, the gossip had reached a fever pitch. Shameless, she heard Mrs. Pemberton hiss to her companion as Sarah May entered the general store. Absolutely shameless. First she bewitches poor Mr. Cole, now she's trapped him into marriage. Sarah May kept her head high, focusing on her list. Ethan was healing well, but they needed more bandages, more laudanum. She wouldn't let their poison affect her. Not today. Can I help you, Mrs.? Hartley asked nervously, glancing between Sarah May and the other customers. I need these items, please. Sarah May handed over her list, her voice steady. As Mrs. Hartley gathered the supplies, more women entered the store. Sarah May recognized them, the minister's wife, the school teacher, Several ranchers' wives. They formed a semicircle, blocking her path to the door. Miss Daniels, the minister's wife, Mrs. Crawford, stepped forward. "We need to have a word with you. I'm in rather a hurry about your influence on Mr. Cole." Mrs. Crawford's pinched face was stern with righteous indignation. "He was a good man before you came along. Respected. Now look what's happened. Violence at his ranch, his reputation in tatters, and these absurd rumors about marriage. What happens between Mr. Cole and myself is no concern of yours," Sarah May said quietly. "It is when it affects the moral fabric of our community," Mrs. Pemberton interjected. "We have daughters to think of. What message does it send when a woman like you can bewitch a decent man?" "A woman like me?" Sarah May felt the familiar anger rising. "You mean a woman who was sold like cattle? A woman who survived things you can't imagine?" "Yes, I suppose I am that woman, and proud of it." Gasps rippled through the group. "Proud, Mrs. Crawford's voice rose. "Proud of your shame." "I'm not ashamed of surviving. I'm not ashamed of working honest work, and I'm certainly not ashamed of loving a man who sees me as a person, not property." "Love, Mrs." Pemberton laughed harshly. "You don't know the meaning of the word. Women like you aren't capable of real love. You're just after his money, his protection." "That's enough." The deep voice came from the doorway. Sheriff Watson stood there, hat in hand, but it wasn't his presence that made the women step back. It was the man beside him. Ethan, pale and moving stiffly, but on his feet. "Ethan," Sarah May rushed to him. "You shouldn't be up." "Heard there might be trouble in town," he said, his arm going around her waist, as much for support as possession. "Seems I heard right." "Mr. Cole," Mrs. Crawford attempted. "We were simply explaining to Miss Daniels." "I heard what you were explaining." His voice was cold as winter wind. "Now let me explain something to you. Sarah May Daniels is going to be my wife. Any disrespect shown to her is disrespect to me, and I have a long memory." "You can't be serious." "Mrs." Pemberton protested. "She's—" "The woman who saved my life. The woman who stood against armed men rather than run. The woman who's shown more courage and dignity than anyone in this store." He looked at each woman in turn. "Can any of you say the same?" "Mr. Cole," Sheriff Watson intervened. "Perhaps we should—" "We should what? Sheriff, arrest these women for harassment for slander." Ethan's smile was sharp. "Or should we discuss why you didn't respond when my ranch was attacked? Where was the law then?" Watson shifted uncomfortably. "Now, that was Boone's doing." "Exactly, and we all know why you looked the other way." Ethan's gaze swept the store. "The law in this town is for sale, just like everything else. But my protection isn't. Anyone who troubles my future wife will answer to me. Personally." The threat hung heavy in the air. These women's husbands did business with Ethan, bought horses from him, relied on his water rights during drought. They couldn't afford to make an enemy of him. "Mrs. Crawford rallied for one last attempt." "Mr. Cole, surely you must see." "What I see," Ethan cut her off, "is a bunch of hypocrites. How many of you came west because you had no other choice? How many of you married for convenience rather than love? How many of you have secrets you'd rather forget?" His gaze lingered on Mrs. Pemberton, whose face flushed red. "The difference between you and Sarah May is that she's honest about her past." "Ethan," Sarah May said softly, "let's go, please." He nodded, but wasn't quite finished. "One more thing, Reverend Crawford. I'll expect you at the ranch on Sunday. Miss Daniels and I have a wedding to plan." They left the store in stunned silence. Outside, Ethan leaned heavily against the hitching post, his face gray with exhaustion. "You fool," Sarah May scolded, even as she supported him. "You could have torn your stitches." "Worth it to see their faces," he grunted. "Help me to the wagon." She'd brought the buckboard. anticipating a large supply order. As she helped him onto the seat, she noticed a crowd gathering. Word was already spreading Ethan Cole had publicly claimed the auction girl, threatened anyone who opposed it. "You've made everything worse," she said as she took up the reins. "Have I?" He leaned against her shoulder, his strength clearly fading. "Or have I made it clear where I stand? The whole town will be against us now." "Let them. I've got everything I need at the ranch." His hand found hers. "Well, almost everything. Still need to make an honest woman of you." "Despite everything," she smiled. "I told you, I'm not—" "I know what you told me." His voice was serious now, despite his exhaustion. "And I need to tell you something. Before this goes any further, you need to know what you're really getting into." "Ethan—" "No, listen." He straightened with effort. "That night, when I was shot, you asked about Boone, about why he won't leave you alone. It's not just about you, Sarah May. It's about me, about what I did to his brother." Sarah May's hands tightened on the reins. "His brother—" 5 years ago, Boone's younger brother, Marcus, took a fancy to a Mexican girl in town, Maria. Her name was Sweet Thing, barely 16. When she refused him, he took what he wanted anyway. The words hung heavy between them. Sarah May knew too well what those carefully chosen words meant. "She came to me," Ethan continued. "Her brother worked on my ranch, begged me to help. I went to the sheriff, but he said without witnesses. It was her word against a white man's. Said even if it was true, she was just Mexican." "So you took justice into your own hands," Sarah May guessed. "I called Marcus out, fair fight, in the middle of town. He drew first, but I was faster." Ethan's voice was flat, emotionless. "Silas swore vengeance. Said I murdered his brother over a worthless girl. He's been looking for ways to hurt me ever since. And I gave him the perfect opportunity." "No." Ethan's denial was fierce. "You gave me something to fight for again. These past years, I've just been existing, going through the motions. But you woke something in me I thought was dead." They rode in silence for a while, each lost in thought. As the ranch came into view, Sarah May finally spoke. "So we both have blood on our hands. Does that bother you?" She considered. "It should. Good women are supposed to be horrified by violence. But all I feel is understanding. You did what you had to do, just like I did what I had to do to survive." "Sarah May, I need to tell you something too. About Boone, about what he really wanted from me." She took a deep breath. "He has these parties for important men, judges, politicians, wealthy ranchers. He wanted me to entertain them, get close to them, learn their secrets." "For blackmail," Ethan said grimly. "Yes, when I refused, he said I owed him too much to say no. That's when I ran. That's how I ended up on that platform." She laughed bitterly. "He probably sees me as a loose thread now, someone who knows too much." "All the more reason to make you my wife. Legal protection." "Is that why you're marrying me, protection?" Ethan was quiet so long she thought he'd fallen asleep. Then, softly, "I'm marrying you because when I thought I was dying, the only regret I had was not telling you I loved you." The reins slipped from Sarah May's suddenly nerveless fingers. The horses, well trained, continued toward home. "You... what?" "I love you, Sarah May Daniels. Not because you need protection, not because you're beautiful, not even because you saved my life. I love you because you're strong and fierce and broken in all the same places I am. Because you look at me and see a man worth standing beside, not a killer to be feared or a wallet to be emptied." "Ethan, Her voice broke. "I don't know how to love. Not properly. The things I've done, the way men have used me." "Do you trust me?" The question stopped her short. "Yes." "Do you feel safe with me?" "Yes." "Do you want to wake up beside me for the rest of your life?" Yes, she whispered. Then you know how to love. He said simply, the rest is just details. They'd reached the ranch. Tom and Miguel hurried out to help Ethan down, scolding him for his foolishness in going to town. But Sarah May barely heard them. Her mind was spinning with Ethan's words, with the events in town, with the uncertain future they faced. That evening, as she sat beside Ethan's bed watching him sleep, she made her decision. Whatever came next, Boone's revenge, the town's censure, the challenges of marriage, she would face it head on. No more running, no more hiding. When Ethan woke, she was there. Sarah May, you should get some rest. I love you too, she said in a rush. I don't know if I'm saying it right, if I'm feeling it right, but when I thought you might die, all I could think was that I'd never told you, never let myself tell you, because saying it makes it real, and real things can be taken away. Come here, he said softly. She moved to sit on the edge of the bed, careful of his wound. He pulled her down for a kiss, gentle and sweet and full of promise. Real things can be taken away, he agreed when they parted. But that's what makes them worth fighting for, worth dying for, if it comes to that. It won't come to that, she said fiercely. I won't let it. We've both lost enough. It's time we started winning. Together. Together. Outside, storm clouds gathered on the horizon, promising trouble to come. But inside the warm circle of lamplight, two damaged souls found solace in each other's arms, building something new from the ashes of their pasts. Something worth defending. Something called home. The fever came 3 days after the confrontation in town. Sarah May woke in the depths of night, her skin burning, her nightgown soaked with sweat. She tried to rise, but the room spun violently, sending her crashing back onto the pillow. Just to chill, she whispered to herself, pulling the blankets higher despite the heat radiating from her body. Nothing more, but as the hours passed, the fever climbed. Dreams and reality blurred together. Boone's leering face morphed into the auctioneer's. Chains rattled in the darkness. Rough hands grabbed at her from all directions. She was back on that platform, back in those terrible rooms, back in all the nightmares she'd tried so hard to forget. No, she moaned, thrashing against invisible restraints. Please, no more. Ethan found her at dawn, delirious and burning, despite his own healing wound. He scooped her into his arms and carried her to his room, shouting for Tom to fetch the doctor. She's burning up, Tom said, bringing cool water and cloths. This ain't natural. Boss, this is more than just fever. Ethan bathed her face with the cool cloth, his jaw tight with worry. Sarah May's eyes were open but unseeing, pupils dilated, lost in some internal torment. Get away, she whimpered, flinching from his touch. Don't touch me. I'll be good, I promise. Just don't. Shh, Ethan soothed, his heart breaking at her words. It's me, sweetheart. It's Ethan. You're safe. But she couldn't hear him, lost in the labyrinth of fever dreams and buried trauma. Dr. Harriman arrived within the hour, took one look at Sarah May, and frowned deeply. How long has she been like this? Found her at dawn, but she was fine yesterday, maybe a little tired. Any unusual foods, drinks, anything out of the ordinary? Ethan thought back. No, nothing. Wait. He remembered the package that had arrived yesterday, allegedly from Mrs. Hartley. Sarah May had been delighted by the tea inside, a special blend for her nerves. The note had said. Where's the tea? Harriman demanded. Tom fetched it quickly. The doctor sniffed it, then tasted a tiny amount, spitting immediately. Jimson weed, mixed with something else. Belladonna. Maybe this is poison. Mr. Cole. A carefully measured dose designed to cause delirium, hallucinations, potentially death if enough is consumed. Boone, Ethan growled. Most likely, though proving it would be impossible. Harriman began pulling bottles from his bag. I need to purge her system, keep her hydrated. The next 24 hours will be critical. What followed was the longest day and night of Ethan's life. Sarah May thrashed and moaned, caught in the grip of poison-induced nightmares. She called out names, men who'd hurt her, places that had trapped her. She begged, pleaded, fought invisible demons. "I'm not weak," she cried at one point, her voice cracking. "I'm not nothing. I'm a person. I'm a person." Ethan held her through it all, whispering reassurances she couldn't hear, bathing her fevered skin, forcing water between her cracked lips when she'd take it. Tom and Miguel took turns keeping watch, bringing fresh water, clean linens. "She's a fighter," Tom said during one of the calmer moments. "She'll pull through." But Ethan could see the doubt in the older man's eyes. The poison had been strong, the dose carefully calculated. This wasn't meant to kill quickly. It was meant to torture, to break the mind before the body gave out. Night fell again. Sarah May's fever spiked dangerously, her breathing becoming shallow and rapid. Harriman shook his head grimly. "I've done all I can. It's in God's hands now." "No," Ethan said fiercely. "It's in her hands. She's stronger than this, stronger than anything Boone can throw at her." He leaned close to her ear, speaking with quiet intensity. "Sarah May, I know you can hear me somewhere in there. I know you're fighting. Don't give up now. Don't let them win. You stood up to Boone with a shotgun. You faced down those harpies in town. You survived things that would break most people. This is just another battle. Sweetheart, fight it. Come back to me." For a moment, nothing. Then her hand twitched in his, fingers curling slightly. "That's it," he encouraged. "Come on, Sarah May. Show them what you're made of. Show them they can't break you." The night wore on. Ethan talked himself hoarse, telling her stories of the ranch, plans for their future, memories of happier times. He described the house they'd build together, the children they'd raise, the life they'd create from the ashes of their pasts. "I was thinking," he said as dawn approached, his voice rough with exhaustion, "we could add on to the house, make a special room for women who need help. Like you said, a safe place for those who've been where you've been. You could teach them to read, to do accounts, give them skills, hope. What do you think?" Her eyes fluttered open, focusing with difficulty on his face. "Ethan?" The word was barely a whisper. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here. I was lost, in the dark. They were all there. All the men who, She shuddered. "They're gone. Just fever dreams. You're safe." "No." She gripped his hand with surprising strength. "They were there, but then I heard you, calling me, telling me to fight." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I almost gave up. Ethan, I was so tired of fighting." "But you didn't give up." "No." A weak smile touched her lips. "I'm too stubborn for that, and besides, we have a wedding to plan." Ethan laughed, the sound part relief, part joy. "That we do, though you scared me half to death. Woman." "Sorry." Her eyes drifted closed again, but this time in natural sleep, not delirium. "Love you," she mumbled. "Love you too," he whispered, pressing a kiss to her forehead. When Harriman checked her that afternoon, he pronounced her out of immediate danger. "She'll be weak for a while, need lots of rest, but she'll recover. That's one strong woman you've got there. Cole. Don't I know it?" Over the next few days, as Sarah May slowly regained her strength, plans were set in motion. Tom and Miguel reinforced the ranch's defenses, knowing Boone wouldn't stop with poison. Ethan sent word to Marshal Morrison about the attempted murder, and Sarah May, despite her weakness, insisted on writing letters. "What are you doing?" Ethan asked, finding her at his desk one morning. "Writing to some women I knew at Boone's place. If he's getting desperate enough to try poison, they're not safe either. I'm offering them sanctuary here. Sarah May, we can't. Yes, we can. Her green eyes blazed with determination. You said we could make a room for women who need help. Well, I know 3 who need it right now. Mary, who's only 17. Kate, who has a little girl Boone uses to control her. And Lily, who's been there so long she's forgotten there's any other life. Boone will come after them, after us. Then we'll be ready. She stood, swaying slightly, and Ethan steadied her. I'm tired of defense. Ethan, it's time we went on the offensive. What do you have in mind? She smiled, and there was something sharp in it, something that reminded him why he'd fallen in love with her. Remember what I told you about the parties? The important men? The secrets? Yes. I wasn't the only one who saw things. Who heard things? If we can get those women to safety, get them to talk to Marshal Morrison. We could bring down Boone's whole operation, Ethan finished. Not just him, but every corrupt official in his pocket. Exactly. Ethan studied her, this woman who'd nearly died, who'd fought through poison and fever and nightmare, and was already planning her next battle. You know this means war. Then war it is. She leaned against him, drawing strength from his solid presence. I'm done being his victim, done letting him control my life through fear. It's time to show him what happens when you push survivors too far. 3 nights later, under cover of darkness, 2 women and a child arrived at the Circle C. Mary, young and terrified but determined. Kate, clutching her daughter like a lifeline. They'd slipped away during one of Boone's parties, guided by Miguel, who'd risked everything to fetch them. Lily wouldn't come, Kate reported sadly. Said it was too late for her, but she helped us get away. Kept Boone distracted. Sarah May's heart ached for the woman left behind, but she focused on those she could help. She settled them into the room she and Ethan had prepared, assured them of their safety. He'll come for us, Mary whispered. He'll never let us go. Then he'll have to go through me, Sarah May replied firmly. Through all of us. You're not alone anymore. As she tucked Kate's daughter into bed, the first real bed the child had ever known, Sarah May felt something shift inside her. The poison had nearly broken her, sent her spiraling back into darkness, but she'd survived, just as she'd survived everything else. And now she had a purpose beyond her own survival. These women, this child, others who would come, they needed what she could offer. Hope, sanctuary, a chance to rebuild. You're really something, Ethan said later, finding her on the porch, keeping watch. I'm just doing what needs doing. No. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. You're building something, a legacy Emma would have been proud of. Sarah May leaned into his warmth. Do you think we can do it, really take down Boone? I think, Ethan said slowly, that Silas Boone made the biggest mistake of his life when he decided to poison you. He wanted to break you, but instead he forged you into something harder, something unbreakable. Not unbreakable, she corrected. I broke plenty of times, but I learned how to put myself back together. And now I can teach others to do the same. Inside the house, she could hear Mary and Kate talking quietly, the soft breathing of a child finally sleeping safely. Tomorrow, Marshal Morrison would come to take their statements. Tomorrow, the real fight would begin. But tonight, surrounded by those she'd sworn to protect, held by the man who'd chosen her above all others, Sarah May Daniels allowed herself a moment of peace. She'd been sold, broken, poisoned, and nearly destroyed. But she was still standing, still fighting, still choosing hope over fear. And that, she thought as the stars wheeled overhead, was its own kind of victory. The house had become a sanctuary. In the 2 months since Mary and Kate's arrival, word had quietly spread among those who needed to hear it. The Circle C Ranch had a room for women with nowhere else to go. No questions asked, no judgment passed, just safety, work, and dignity. Sarah May stood in the doorway of what had once been a storage room, now transformed into a common area where 5 women sat learning their letters. Mary was helping the newest arrival, a timid girl named Ruth who'd escaped from a traveling show. Kate's daughter, Lucy, sat on Sarah May's lap, proudly reading from a primer. "Very good, Lucy," Sarah May praised. "You're learning so quickly." The child beamed. At 6 years old, she was finally getting the childhood she deserved. "Miss Sarah," Ruth spoke up hesitantly. "Is it true what they say, that you're getting married on Sunday?" "It's true," Sarah May confirmed, unable to suppress her smile. "Though with all the preparations, sometimes I wonder if we'll make it to the altar." The women laughed, a sound that still amazed her. These women who'd known such darkness, finding joy again. It was nothing short of miraculous. "Riders coming!" Tom's shout from outside made everyone tense. Sarah May passed Lucy to her mother and moved to the window. But it was only Marshal Morrison with 2 deputies, arriving as scheduled to collect more testimony. Over the past weeks, the women's statements had built a damning case against Boone and his associates. 3 judges had already been arrested, and a territorial governor was under investigation. "Ladies?" Morrison tipped his hat as he entered. "Miss Daniels, how are we today?" "Ready to see justice done," Kate said firmly. She'd become fierce since arriving, the safety of the ranch awakening a strength she'd forgotten she possessed. As the women gave their statements, Sarah May stepped onto the porch where Ethan was talking with Tom. Her future husband looked tired. They'd been staying up in shifts, watching for Boone's retaliation. "Anything?" she asked. "Quiet as a grave," Tom reported. "Too quiet, if you ask me. Boone ain't the type to go gentle." "No," Ethan agreed. "He's planning something. I can feel it." Sarah May slipped her hand into his. "Then we'll be ready. We've faced him before. This is different. He's cornered now, desperate. The territorial authorities seized his properties yesterday. He's got nothing left to lose." "Good," Sarah May said fiercely. "Neither do I." That night, unable to sleep, she found herself in Emma's room. She'd taken to spending time there when she needed to think. Somehow, she felt close to the sister Ethan had lost, the woman whose clothes had given her dignity when she had none. "I hope you'd approve," she whispered to the daguerreotype. "I hope you'd understand why I love him, why he loves me." She would. Sarah May turned to find Ethan in the doorway. "She always said I was too serious," he continued, entering the room. "Said I needed someone to challenge me, make me laugh, remind me there was more to life than work and duty." He smiled softly. "She would have loved you, would have loved what you're doing for these women." "I couldn't save her, but maybe I can save others." "You already have." He pulled her close. Mary told Morrison about a trafficking ring that extends all the way to California. Kate's testimony implicated a senator. Ruth identified 3 men who've been buying and selling women across territorial lines. You've started something that's going to save dozens, maybe hundreds. "We've started something," she corrected. "I couldn't do any of this without you." They stood together in comfortable silence, surrounded by the gentle ghost of Emma's presence. Tomorrow, friends would begin arriving for the wedding. The next day, she would walk down an aisle made of wildflowers and become Mrs. Ethan Cole. It seemed impossible that the woman sold on an auction block was the same one planning her wedding. "No regrets?" Ethan asked softly. "No regrets," she confirmed. "You?" "Only one." At her questioning look, he continued, "I regret that it took so long to find you, that you had to go through hell before we met." "But I survived hell," she reminded him. "And it led me to you. To this, maybe everything happens for a reason. Meaning from suffering, purpose from pain." She touched his face gently. "Every woman we help, every life we save, it redeems a little of what we've been through, makes it worth something." The next morning brought organized chaos. Tom had recruited extra hands to help with security, ostensibly for the wedding, but really in case Boone made his move. The women threw themselves into decorating, transforming the ranch into something magical with wildflowers, ribbons, and carefully cleaned lanterns. Reverend Crawford arrived looking distinctly uncomfortable. Sarah May took pity on him. Reverend, she said quietly, pulling him aside. I know this isn't easy for you. I know what your wife and others have said. If you'd rather not— No, he straightened his shoulders. I've done some thinking these past weeks, Miss Daniels, some praying, and I've come to realize that Christ himself stood with women others condemned. Who am I to do less? Thank you, she said simply. Don't thank me yet. I expect my wife will make my life miserable for this. But he smiled as he said it. Worth it, though, to do what's right for once. As the sun set, Sarah May found herself surrounded by her chosen family. The women she'd saved, who'd saved her in return. Miguel, practicing his reading with Lucy. Tom, gruff and protective as a father. And Ethan, always Ethan, her anchor in every storm. Miss Sarah, Mary approached hesitantly. The girls and I, we made something for you. She held out a carefully wrapped package. Inside was a quilt, pieced together from scraps of fabric, each square embroidered with something different. A sunrise, a wildflower, a bird in flight, symbols of hope and freedom and new beginnings. We each did a square, Kate explained. Even Lucy, see, she did the heart. Sarah May traced the crooked little heart with trembling fingers. It's beautiful. I don't have words. You gave us our lives back, Ruth said softly. This is just a small thank you. As Sarah May embraced each woman in turn, she felt the last walls around her heart crumble. She'd spent so long protecting herself, afraid to hope, afraid to trust. But these women, this place, this life, they'd healed her in ways she hadn't even realized she needed. Later that night, as tradition demanded, she prepared to spend her last unmarried night apart from Ethan. But first, she had one more thing to do. She found him on the porch, keeping watch as always. Can't sleep, he asked. Too excited, too grateful, too— everything. She sat beside him. I need to tell you something. About that night when I was poisoned. His expression grew serious. You don't have to— Yes, I do. She took a breath. When I was in that darkness, lost in all those memories, I almost let go. It would have been easier, to just stop fighting. But you didn't. No, because I heard your voice. But more than that, I saw a future. Our future. The children we'll raise. The women we'll help. The life we'll build. She met his eyes. You saved me, Ethan. Not just from that platform, not just from Boone, but from despair itself. Sarah May. Let me finish. She smiled through her tears. Tomorrow, when I say I do, I want you to know what it means. It means I choose you. Not because you saved me, but because you saw me. The real me. And somehow, impossibly, you loved what you saw. Still do, he said roughly. Always will. Then I'll see you at the altar, Mr. Cole. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Miss Daniels. As she walked back to the house, Sarah May felt a lightness she'd never experienced before. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Boone was still out there, still dangerous. The town's judgment hadn't magically disappeared. The wounds of the past didn't heal overnight. But tonight, surrounded by love and acceptance, preparing to marry a man who'd chosen her above all others, Sarah May Daniels finally understood what it meant to be truly free. She'd been bought and sold, broken and mended, poisoned and healed. But through it all, she'd never let them take the one thing that mattered most, her ability to choose her own path. And tomorrow, in front of God and whoever else cared to witness it. She would choose love, choose hope, choose a future built on the ashes of the past. As she settled into bed, the quilt made by her rescued sisters spread across her. Sarah May smiled. Somewhere out there, more women needed saving, more battles needed fighting, more wrongs needed righting. But first, a wedding, a celebration of survival, of love triumphing over hate, of two broken people choosing to build something whole together. It would be, she thought as sleep finally claimed her, a very good beginning to the rest of her life. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright, with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of wildflowers across the ranch. Sarah May woke early, her heart full of a joy she'd never thought possible. 2 years ago, she'd been sold like cattle. Today, she would marry the man who'd shown her that love could heal even the deepest wounds. "Rise and shine, bride-to-be." Kate burst into the room with Mary and Ruth, all of them beaming. "We've got a wedding to prepare for." As the women helped her dress in the simple white gown Ethan had commissioned from the finest seamstress in Fort Worth, Sarah May marveled at the transformation in all their lives. Mary had blossomed from a terrified girl into a confident young woman. Kate had become the ranch's unofficial mother hen, her daughter Lucy thriving in the safety of their new home. Ruth, once too timid to speak, now taught reading lessons with quiet authority. "You're glowing," Ruth said softly, adjusting Sarah May's veil. "I'm happy," Sarah May replied, the words still feeling foreign on her tongue. "Truly, deeply happy." Outside, the ranch buzzed with activity. Tom had outdone himself, transforming the yard into a wedding venue fit for royalty. White ribbons fluttered from every post. Wild flowers lined the makeshift aisle, and rows of chairs borrowed from neighboring ranches awaited the guests. Among those guests, surprisingly, were several townspeople who'd had changes of heart. Mrs. Hartley from the general store sat in the front row, having publicly apologized for her earlier coldness. Even a few of the ranchers' wives who'd condemned Sarah May had come, curiosity overcoming prejudice. Ethan stood at the altar, resplendent in his best suit, Miguel and Tom flanking him as groomsmen. When the music began, a fiddle played by one of the ranch hands, Sarah May emerged from the house, and Ethan's breath caught. She was radiant, moving with the grace of a woman who'd finally found her place in the world. The journey down the aisle felt both endless and all too brief. When she reached him, Ethan took her hands, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "You came," he whispered. "Nowhere else I'd rather be," she whispered back. Reverend Crawford cleared his throat, beginning the ceremony. "Dearly beloved, we gather today to witness something remarkable, not just a union of two people, but a testament to the power of redemption, forgiveness, and love." As they exchanged vows, Sarah May's voice rang clear and strong. "Ethan Cole, you saw me at my lowest, broken and lost, and you offered me not pity, but respect, not charity, but opportunity. You gave me the chance to discover who I could be when freed from the chains of my past. I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes, to be your partner in all things, and to choose you again and again, for all the days of my life." Ethan's voice was rougher, thick with emotion. "Sarah May Daniels, you taught me that strength isn't about never falling, it's about always getting back up. You showed me that love isn't about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone whose broken pieces fit with yours. I promise to protect you without constraining you, to love you without conditions, and to build with you a life worthy of the courage you show every day. By the power vested in me," Reverend Crawford intoned, his own voice suspiciously thick, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. Mr. Cole, you may kiss your bride." The kiss was tender, a promise sealed before witnesses both earthly and divine. As they turned to face their guests, the yard erupted in cheers. Even some of the townspeople who'd come to gawk found themselves applauding, moved by the obvious love between the couple. The celebration that followed was joyous. Tables groaned under the weight of food prepared by the ranch women. Music filled the air. Lucy danced on her mother's feet, while Tom regaled anyone who'd listen with increasingly embellished tales of ranch life. Mrs. Cole. Marshal Morrison approached during a quiet moment. "Might I have a word?" Sarah May, still getting used to her new name, nodded. "Of course, Marshal. Wanted you to know we arrested Silas Boone this morning. He was trying to flee to Mexico, but we caught him at the border. With all the testimony you ladies provided, he'll be facing federal charges, trafficking, blackmail, conspiracy. He won't be troubling anyone for a very long time." Sarah May felt Ethan's arm tighten around her waist. "It's over then. His operation is finished. There might be a few rats scurrying in the shadows, but the head of the snake has been cut off." Morrison smiled. "You did that, ma'am. You and these brave women. You should be proud." As Morrison walked away, Sarah May leaned into her husband. "Did you hear that it's really over?" "No," Ethan corrected gently. "It's really beginning." As if to emphasize his point, a wagon appeared on the horizon. As it drew closer, Sarah May recognized the driver, Lily, the woman who'd stayed behind to help the others escape. "I hope I'm not too late for the celebration," Lily called out, her face gaunt but smiling. "Heard there was a place here for women looking to start over." "You're just in time," Sarah May called back, tears streaming down her face. "Welcome home." The party continued well into the evening, as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. Sarah May found herself on the porch with Ethan, watching their guests. The ranch had become a small community, a place of healing and hope. "My feet hurt," she confessed, leaning against him. "Mine too," he admitted. "Worth it, though." "Ethan?" a small voice interrupted. Lucy stood before them, holding a piece of paper. "I made this for you." It was a drawing stick figures, but clearly meant to represent their family. Ethan and Sarah May in the center, surrounded by all the women and children who'd found sanctuary at the ranch. At the top, in careful letters, Lucy had written, "My family." "It's perfect," Sarah May said, kneeling to hug the child. "Absolutely perfect." As the stars came out, the guests gradually departed or retired to the bunkhouse. The women cleaned up with practiced efficiency, shooing the newlyweds away when they tried to help. "Go on," Kate insisted. "This is your wedding night. Let us handle this." In their room now. Sarah May thought with wonder Ethan took her in his arms. "No regrets?" he asked, echoing his question from the night before. "Not one," she assured him. Only that Emma couldn't be here to see this, to see you." Sarah May touched his face gently. "She is here, in every woman we help, in the love we share, in the future we're building. She's part of all of it." They stood by the window, looking out at their ranch, their sanctuary, their home, in the bunkhouse. Laughter rang out as the women settled Lucy for bed. In the barn, the horses nickered softly. All was peaceful. All was right. "I love you, Mrs. Cole," Ethan murmured. "I love you too, Mr. Cole," Sarah May replied, "forever and always." 2 years later, Sarah May sat at the same desk where she'd once trembled over ledgers, now writing in her journal with confident strokes. "Today marks the 2nd anniversary of my marriage to Ethan, and what a journey it has been. The Circle C Ranch has become known throughout the territory as a place of refuge. We've helped 37 women find new lives, new purpose. Some have stayed, becoming part of our ever-growing family. Others have moved on, equipped with skills and confidence to forge their own paths. Lucy reads at a level far beyond her 8 years and has announced she wants to be a teacher. Mary recently married Tom's nephew, a good man who sees her for who she is, not who she was. Kate manages our household with military precision and motherly warmth. Ruth has opened a small school in town, teaching children whose families can't afford formal education. And Lily, brave Lily, who stayed behind so others could escape, she now helps me coordinate a network of safe houses throughout the territory. We call it the Underground Railroad for Lost Souls. As for Ethan and me, we've built something beautiful from the ashes of our pain. The baby growing within me is proof that life finds a way, that love conquers all, that second chances are possible for those brave enough to take them. I was once sold like an animal, treated as less than human, but I was never truly broken, never truly defeated. I found my strength in the darkest of places, found love where I least expected it, found purpose in my pain. To any woman who might someday read these words, know this: you are not your past. You are not what was done to you. You are not the names they call you or the price they put on your head. You are a human being, deserving of love, respect, and dignity. And if you ever find yourself in need of sanctuary, there is a place in Texas where you will be welcomed, protected, and helped to find your wings again. The sign outside our gate reads Circle C Ranch, but those of us who live here know its true name, Rest Here, for that's what we offer: rest for the weary, hope for the hopeless, and love for those who thought themselves unlovable. I chose love, I chose hope, I chose life, and every day I choose them again. Forever and always. Sarah Mae Cole. As she set down her pen, Ethan appeared in the doorway, their infant son in his arms. "Little Samuel's hungry," he said, passing the baby to her. Sarah Mae settled into the rocking chair Emma had once used, nursing her son while Ethan sat beside them, one hand on her shoulder, the other gently stroking Samuel's downy head. Through the window, she could see the newest arrivals, two sisters from Kansas, learning to ride horses under Tom's patient instruction. In the garden, Kate and Lucy tended vegetables that would feed their extended family. From the schoolroom came the sound of Ruth leading a reading lesson. This was her life now. Not perfect, there were still hard days, still memories that haunted, still battles to fight, but it was hers, built on choice rather than chance, love rather than fear. "What are you thinking?" Ethan asked softly. Sarah Mae looked up at him, this man who'd paid a fortune for her freedom and asked nothing in return but the chance to love her. "I'm thinking," she said, shifting Samuel to her shoulder, "that sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead us to the best things. That maybe, just maybe, everything really does happen for a reason. Even the auction." "Especially the auction." She reached for his hand. "Because it led me to you, to home." As the sun set over the Circle C Ranch, painting the sky in familiar shades of gold and rose, Sarah Mae Cole knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. Not because a man had bought her, but because she had chosen this life, this love, this future. She had been sold as property. She had risen as a woman, and she would spend the rest of her days making sure other women got the same chance. It was, she thought as Samuel cooed contentedly, and Ethan pressed a kiss to her forehead, a legacy worth leaving, a life worth living, a love worth choosing, again and again, forever and always. Thank you so much for listening to this story of love, redemption, and the triumph of the human spirit. I'm curious, where in the world are you listening to this tale of the Wild West? Please leave a comment below and share your thoughts about Sarah Mae and Ethan's journey. Don't forget to subscribe to Wild West Night for more stories that touch the heart and stir the soul. If this story moved you, please hit that like button and give it a hype to help more people discover these tales of courage and hope in the American frontier. Until next time, partners.